Hello, everyone. Welcome to All In on Real Estate. I'm your host, Aaron Goins. I started this meetup because when I was in the military, no one in my circles talked about real estate. And a lot of times, no one does. So I wanted to start a meetup where people can learn about real estate and start building generational wealth for them and their families. I'm very, very happy to have our guest speaker, Mr. Josh Payne. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing amazing. Happy to be here, Aaron.
Hey, man. And like I said, man, I love the outfit, man. I love the outfit, man.
Appreciate you.
So we're not going to primarily talk about real estate for the most part, right? But we're going to talk about your expertise, finances, right? So I want to ask you, I always ask my my attendees this: what got you into your field with finances and things like that?
Yeah, so there's a definite story that led me to where we're at today. And it started, I grew up, since the age of 5, the only thing I thought about doing was playing baseball. From 5 years old on, you couldn't find me without a glove or a bat or a ball. And my entire life was revolved around playing professional baseball. Ended up going to school on a Division I college baseball scholarship, played in the number 3 power conference in the nation, had an all-world career at the Division I college level, all conference, MVP, Hall of Fame, all these accolades. But one day I found myself laying on my back, staring up at the sky after suffering a back injury. And at that moment, not only did I know the game of baseball, but I understood the business of baseball. From a young age, I trained with all the great Major League Baseball players from Sacramento, California, which is a hotbed for professional baseball. And so I understood, I was surrounded by it. I was exposed to it. I understood the business of baseball. And when I was laying there at that moment, I knew the reality was my dream was over. And despite rehabbing and having a great senior season where I, had all kinds of recognition and accolades, the season ended and the call didn't come in. And I knew it wasn't, but yet I was still devastated. Purpose was gone, passion was gone. And to be quite honest, I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I just sort of did what everybody said to do, which was to finish school, get that degree that was supposed to provide my family with the life that we wanted. And the reality was I was living a life of quiet desperation and no purpose, no passion, just sort of going through life, man. And it led me and ended me into, or landed me into being a PGA Class A golf professional for 10 years. And I ran some of the highest, very, very high-end private country clubs here in the Silicon Valley. And that's where everything changed. Because for 10 years, I served some of the wealthiest people in the world. And I tell everybody at 31 years old, I made the decision I was going to get my second education. And I was going to unlearn everything I'd ever been taught about career, money, success. And I was going to relearn it from people that had the life that I wanted. And so because I could get a little white golf ball around the golf course and a lot fewer strokes than everybody else, they wanted me to come play golf with them. The way I saw it is I had 4 to 5 hours on a golf course with some of the, these incredible human beings. And all I did was dig in and try and learn as much as I could. And there was a couple of defining moments. The main defining moment of my life that transitioned me into entrepreneurship and landed me in the financial industry is I had finished playing golf with a mentor at that point in time who we played many rounds of golf together. And he said, Josh, I want to have lunch with you. And we'd done that many times. And we finished playing and we went out, we got our lunch and we sat down at the table and he pulled out, those brown recycled napkins they have in dispensers. He pulled out a couple of those and he pulled a pen out of his jacket. And he drew out what I now know as the cash flow quadrant. And he taught me how, he said, Josh, you're great at what you do. But if you continue doing it the same way you're doing it, you'll never have what we have. And I remember that was a gut punch because more than anything, I wanted to have that life, right? And for my mentor to say to me at that point in time, you'll never have what we have. He said, listen, there's 350 members at this country club. We all come from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different countries. He said, but we all share one thing in common. He said, we all own businesses. He said, there are no employees here. And when he said that to me, it was like the clouds parted, the sun came shining down, and I finally understood what the route was going to have to be for me to get to where I wanted to go. And he said, listen, he said, what do you think the biggest separator is between the world class and everybody else? And I said, well, the money, of course. And he said, it's not the money. He said, it's the specialized knowledge the world class understand about how to acquire that money. And he said, namely, comes down to two things. Number one, ownership. And number two, leverage. He said, the world class own things and they've created leverage in their life. And I said, well, what's that? And he said, leverage is the ability to do two things: the ability to multiply the number of hours you have in the day, and the ability to multiply yourself to be in more than one place at the same time. He said, you have 24 hours in the day. He said, I've got 1,000 employees running a company. I've got 24,000 hours in the day. He said, doesn't matter how good you are at what you do, you can never compete with me because you don't have enough hours in the day. And it was like my mind just burst open at that point in time. And so that moment right there changed the way I look at everything. And so fast forward, I got out of the golf industry because I was working like 30 days in a row, 12, 14, 15 hours a day. It was a very, very demanding clientele running a country club like that. And I knew in order to find what I wanted to do, I was going to have to get out of the industry. I landed back in, I got recruited to rebuild an athletic program at a high school here. And it was at that point in time I landed just by chance because I didn't know anything about money. My wife didn't know anything about money. We looked at each other. She graduated from one of the most prestigious public universities in the country. I graduated, I had a few degrees from college at that point in time. We looked at it and we said, we don't know anything about money. We need to have our plan put in place. We were so moved by the experience that I said, how are we going to make sure that our family and friends get this information? And I said, I know how. I'm going to get licensed and we're going to get started in the business. Fast forward, here we are 15 years later, and our passion has never wavered from, helping people obtain the financial literacy to have a successful financial future, and to help people break out of that 9-to-5, that rat race, and have a chance within entrepreneurship to really accomplish their goals and dreams in life. And now we have a business stretches across the United States and are really on a mission to do something of just incredible impact in the communities. And that's kind of what's led me to where we're at today.
Oh man, I thought about so many things when you was talking, man. I don't even know what direction I want to go to. I love the analogy. You're one person, 24 hours. You have 24,000 hours. But I want to dig a little bit deeper. You brought some of your that mentality of playing baseball into what you do now? Because you hear that you're competitive, you work so many hours. Was the work ethic that you have then come down with you? Did it ever leave you because of the hard work you put in baseball and got to a certain point that other people haven't?
Yeah, great question. And it reminds me of a story of a mentor of mine that I heard speak the very first time. And he said something from stage that immediately clicked with me. As I looked at myself and my future, he said, you want to find people that have a thread of success in their fabric of life. And it clicked with me. And I looked at it and go, I know exactly what he's talking about. See, once I've been successful in one area of life, which the reality is, most people have, they've been successful in something. Sometimes they've forgotten because life's beat them down, right? But
Right.
everybody's been successful in something. And when we can identify what did it take to become successful in that, for me, it was as an athlete, and then into the sort of the corporate side of things, but more so as an athlete is what I identified with. I knew what it took to play at the top of the nation. And I figured, well, being in business is going to be no different if I apply the same principles of success I had as an athlete. If I apply them in the business world, then I'm going to have success. Now, this is coming from a guy who was not the best athlete, right? I always tell people I had 70% of the talent. I just had 130% of the work ethic, right? And that ultimately was what propelled me past everybody else, was I just was driven beyond belief. And I just figured if I beat at my craft long enough, I'm going to beat most people. And if they want to compete with me, they better pack their lunch, because this dude ain't going to stop, and that's ultimately what I did in business. So finding somebody who has a thread of success in their fabric of life, they know how to win in one area. And all we got to do is then say, okay, now in this new endeavor, let's just figure out what are those principles of success in what we do now that are going to provide the same level of results as we had in this other area.
Right.
And that's what I figured out when I got started in business.
I really resonate with you, because I mean, you had to get to a certain point. You had to sacrifice to get to where you want to go to, and I definitely understand that. Going back again to when you work at the golf course and you was around all these people who are successful and things like that, what was your biggest takeaway of them? Was it, well, they're just a regular person, I can do the same thing as them? Or was it like, man, wow, I wish I can be like them? What was your mentality or your biggest takeaway from working with and playing golf with these gentlemen or ladies or successful people?
There's so many, I have so many imprinted memories of being in the business, because you have to understand, like, as an athlete, the best major league ball players, all-stars that came out of Sacramento, they were like peers for me as an athlete. So I saw myself at that level, and I interacted as now I go into the professional field, and it's like the members are up here and I'm right here, because I'm just an employee. And that never resonated well with me. I'm like, wait, I can do what you can do, right? There was this competitive side to me that said, wait a second, I'm not down here, dude, right? I looked at those guys, they tied their shoes the same way I did. They put their pants on the same way I did. Here's what I had to learn. I had to learn that the dream changed, or rather the vehicle changed, but the dream was still alive. The vehicle changed, but the desire was still there. So what I had to learn was, what did they do to get there? What are the things that they did? That was the second education, because it was business. If you took me outside of being an athlete, I grew up in a middle-class environment, right? All I knew was middle-class things as it related to career and business and success. But as an athlete, my association, my environment was totally different. But when that athlete was stripped away, I went right back down to what I knew. So I had to learn on a different vehicle, right? The vehicle was business. But what I realized as I was studying them, I'm like, man, they're regular people. They've become good at their craft. How did they get good at their craft? How do I create that for myself? And I remember standing in the golf shop, and there were these tables. There were these, I played with a group of guys all the time, and they were all the good players at the club, but they were all very successful businessmen here in the Silicon Valley. And I remember they would have these lunches out there, Aaron. I've been looking at the lunch and I go, man, there are deals going down at those tables, man. I want to be at those tables. That's where life is right there. That's what I want. And I felt like if you've ever can remember looking at a cartoon where the little kid is on the outside of the group of guys and he's trying to jump in, he's trying to look through. I felt like that was me. And I go, that's not you, man, you belong inside. So I realized, okay, I'm going to learn and then I'm going to apply and I'm going to get after it. And as I learned, and I was a good student, I was very coachable, asked a lot of questions, a lot of good questions, and I put it into action. So because of that, they kept bringing me along because they saw me putting into action. It wasn't like, I was asking the same questions all the time. And through that process, I got to realize they're normal people. I can do what they can do, what they've done in my own way as I learned the skill sets and what it takes to make that happen in business, just like I did from the Major League ball players on the baseball field, right? So I drew the connection there and just applied the same driven mentality towards it.
Okay. So let's get into the meat potatoes of everything, finances. So, and I love everything he was talking about, man. I really resonate with that. And yeah, I just love it. Because I try to talk to my son about some of the things you talked about as well. So what was your first steps, when you start doing the financial expertise and how was your first couple clients with?
Look, all I've ever done is taken my experience and shared my story. The reason I got into business is because I was so moved personally about the process I went through with my wife at the time and looked at it and said, how in the world were we not taught this information? And I just turned around and I shared our story. I shared the information we were taught. And it comes across with passion and conviction because I live it. The only thing I know is and can share is the story I have. Right now, it's just my story. It's just my perspective, but it was always based on what I've done, right? And I did the same thing in business. I shared the passion of simple, fundamental principles of finance. I didn't see it as hard. I said, this is so easy, but if you're never taught those fundamentals, then we're at a disadvantage because we just don't know. And then I started to learn real quick and started to see the systemic problems in our country of lack of equal access. Because I realized the guys at the country club, they had all this information. Why didn't I? And I realized there's this systemic problem, and we all know, like, the wealthy, they have their guys, but what about everybody else? And I just saw this need in the community for the simple principles of basic personal financial management, and that's how that was the story we shared coming out and getting started, and being passionate about the simple principles to get people on track to their goals.
So when you start with clients, do you have to do a mindset shift with most people, just as far as changing their mind about finances, because they might be taught a certain type of way, and now you got to, change their mind and maybe open it up to certain things, like you would open up when you was with the golf course?
Absolutely. I mean, everything starts with mindset, right? Success in anything, on the athletic field started with mindset. Success in business starts with the mindset. Success with money starts with mindset. And unless we change what I call our money DNA, we're always going to end up right back in the same spot. And we're talking about the guy who won the lottery, right?
Yeah.
There's a ridiculous percentage, like 70 or 80% of lottery winners end up in bankruptcy court within 10 years. How in the world is that possible? Well, they never had the foundation of the mindset elevated, right? So our money DNA, our mindset about money has to be elevated. And most people, myself included, are raised in an environment that creates limiting beliefs as it relates to money. And there's simple things, there's simple what could be a, kind of appear as harmless things in an environment that create limiting beliefs about money. Things like, we've all heard them. What do you think? Money grows on trees. Turn off the lights, you're wasting money. All these what appear to be just simple things create a mindset of lack, and we've got to rebuild that for people so they can have a mindset of abundance and realize that they can grow. And as we adjust the money DNA, now we can start to operate in a successful manner. Okay. And so, some of those things that I take, and I really work with our team on this, there's 4 steps to elevating the mindset, right? The first one is the awareness that we have a limiting belief, that we have limits. And so we have to have an awareness. Once there is an awareness of it, this is what happened when Tracy and I sat down. We go, wow, we've got some limiting beliefs about money, some limiting understanding that translates into beliefs. So there was an awareness there. Then the second step is we've got to dismiss those beliefs. To say, it may have been what I was taught, but it's not who I am. And I could choose to dismiss that belief. And of course, if I dismiss something, what do I have to do? I have to replace it with an empowering belief that's congruent to where I want to go. And then we've got to reinforce it. The fourth step, which is reinforcing it through repetition and affirmation, right? Because paradigms, especially about money, are built over time and they're elevated over time. Bob Proctor said, you tell yourself something long enough, you begin to believe it. That's the repetition and affirmation part of it, is we've got to build up those beliefs about money. So that's the 4 steps we work on. Hey, what's our limitation? Okay, we've got an awareness of it. Now let's dismiss it. Let's replace it with something that's congruent with where we want to go. And then we're going to hit the repetition, affirmation, right? Or rather reinforce it with repetition and affirmation, so that every day we're telling ourselves the right things and we're elevating that mindset. It applies to real estate. It applies to athletics. It applies to learning having the proper mindset about money. And once we're doing that, now we can implement steps from a technical standpoint and have success with them. Because if not, it's like this. It's like, if you ever, I don't know if you play golf or not, but this happens all the time. Okay. Somebody goes out and is having the best round of their life. They get to the 18th hole and they blow up. They score a 15 on a par 4. Why? Because they're at a level that is far above where their mindset is. And what does the body do? It brings it right back down by hitting the ball out of bounds, another ball out of bounds, another ball in the water. All of a sudden they have the worst hole they've ever had, and they end up right back where what? They're comfortable. And that's the way it works with money. So you start doing these right things, but what happens? We haven't elevated the mindset towards money. And all of a sudden we find a way to clear out those accounts and right back to where we started. So it all starts with the mind.
All right. So do you have anything you want to talk about as far as, finances, or you want to provide attendees or like that?
Look, here's the things about money is that one size doesn't fit all. So planning is dependent on the personal situation, right? Each person's situation. So we have a thing where we just outline it. Look, we got to help debtors become savers. We got to help then savers can become investors, and investors can become planners. But I can't take a debtor and bring them to a planner. There's a process that has to happen. That's the mindset. That's the things that have to be built in layers so that they can have success. And ultimately, again, money, business, entrepreneurship, it all is the same. There's going to be a process as it relates to money. We figure out where somebody's at and then go, okay, they're here. These are the steps we have to take in order to start making headway towards your goals. You know, simple things like pay yourself first, right? Understanding that we got to put ourselves at the head of the line. However that is, whatever vehicle it is, we got to pay ourselves for. We got to treat ourselves like a bill that we pay first. People go, well, Josh, I don't have enough money at the end of the month. If you pay yourself first, you'll make an adjustment in everything else. If you're trying to wait till the end of the month to put money away, it's never going to happen, right? Simple fundamental like that. Simple fundamental of understanding that, you know, the wealthy invest their money in income producers. The middle class waste their money on income consumers, things that take money out of their account, right? So we got to understand short-term trade-offs equal long-term success financially, right? Short-term trade-offs equal long-term success financially. You look at, you know, there's a saying that's been said, the lower class judge their success on material things like shoes, cars, clothes, etc. The middle class judge their success based on degrees and initials at the end of their name. But the wealthy, the world class, judge their success based on what's in their bank account or what's their net worth, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's a mindset. And so understanding that and then having the simple steps along the way, everything's customized, of course, and in terms of what it takes to get somebody on track to their goals and dreams from a financial perspective. And obviously on a one-on-one, we can determine what the best steps are. But look, there's simple fundamentals like pay yourself first. You got to start putting money away. We got to move you from a debtor to a saver to investor, investor to planner. There's a progression that happens there. And then, you know, making sure that at the end of the day, from a financials perspective, I'll kind of leave it with this, is that one of two things is going to happen in everybody's life. We're going to die too soon, or we're going to live too long. And the question becomes, do we have a plan in place to take care of both? Because at the end of the day, if we can get the country to understand that if we die too soon, there's protection in place to replace the loss of an income. If we live too long, that, hey, we're building assets for the future and however mechanism that somebody thinks is appropriate for them. But that concept remains the same. And if we can get people planning to take care of both, we've got our country moving in the right direction.
I never heard somebody say that before, and I really like that analogy right there. I really do. Okay, so are you one of the people who believe in having different accounts for different things, like for real estate investors, you know, putting money away so that you can invest into a deal later on, or having a vacation fund? Do you believe in having multiple accounts for multiple things?
Yeah, I mean, I think that everybody has the secret to planning is figuring out what somebody's goals and dreams are, right? What do you want? And when we know what we want, then we can structure a plan around that. And certainly being able to accommodate certain goals and dreams that a family has. If somebody wants to, you know, purchase investment properties, well, yeah, you've got to put money away for that. So what's the best strategy? Well, that's going to determine on what they're looking to do, how much time they have, et cetera. So we get them set up in the best vehicle for that purchase down the road. If somebody's, you know, looking to take a vacation, wants to take the family on a vacation to, you know, to travel around the world, whatever it might be. Okay, what's the time frame? All right, then recommending the proper vehicle to accommodate that based on the time and the purpose. So everything is customized in our business, and I'm always very careful, right? Because I have to be in speaking like this, because everything is dependent on the situation. I always tell people my feet are firmly planted in midair. It just depends on what the situation is. And then making sure that to the best of our ability, we can help families accomplish their goals and set them up in that manner. And that's only done by knowing exactly what the scenario is.
what is what's the most difficult part of working with high net worth people?
Look, in all honesty, I do have clients that are that. I spend a lot of time working with them in a job scenario, so I'll probably aim towards that more so. But look, they're there for a reason. They've accomplished things. They've gotten to that point. Majority of them have gotten to that point through having success. And there's expectation. And the expectation, there's expectations they have of themselves, and oftentimes they expect others around them to have those same, in my experience, those same expectations, right? So handling that and knowing that, and what I always found is successful for me was anticipation, thinking about things and preparing for things before they happened. And that ultimately always kept me on path with what their expectations were. And I just realized, look, this person's has this net worth because they were successful, and they're going to expect out of me the same type of service or the same type of relationship that has gotten them to where they're at. And for a lot of people, that's a challenge because the mindset, right? But again, I came from a world where I knew the expectations of those all-star Major League Baseball players I trained with. Man, they were high. And I just said, they're the same as so-and-so, right? They're the same as so-and-so. They're going to expect the same thing. That's why they're where they're at. And I understood how to work with them. So again, I just transitioned it over to my career and have done so in business, right? And making sure that I'm living up to their expectations within reason, right? Which is a fair relationship, right? It's not a one-way relationship. There's a fair relationship of exchange there, but certainly aiming to serve as best as I possibly can to their expectations.
Okay, we only have a couple more minutes, so I do want to open up for attendees, but I want to ask you my question I always ask. Where do you want to see yourself in 5 years?
That's a great question. And let me tell you why it's a tough question for me to answer, because I'm always raising the bar. And no matter where I'm at, there's another level. And so there was if you haven't ever seen this, you should watch it. It's about a 3 or 4 minute clip of Matthew McConaughey's Academy Award speech. And in that, man, he nailed it. It spoke so directly to me when I heard it. I'm like, oh my God, he's saying the same thing that I feel. Only he verbalized it. It looks like that you've seen that before, Aaron. Mm-hmm. And he talked about always having someone to chase. And that someone to chase was him in 10 years, knowing he was never going to ever catch him. Because as soon as he got close, he was going to raise the bar to the next level. That's what I feel. I've got goals. We want to be in all 48 continental U.S. states in the next 24 to 36 months. But when we do that, what's next, right? There's always another level. And so, I think that impact for us is very important. I'd like to have a brand that is the household name when people think of money, when people think of Silicon Valley. I want to have a brand that stands out in their mind, and that's a big task. But heck, if those goals aren't inspiring people to question them, they're not big enough, right? And so that's really is the magnitude of impact. And through our business, our impact really is not only what I do, that's a very small part of it, because we've got agents everywhere. And it's the families' lives that they touch. So it's the compounding through leverage, as we talked about in the beginning, that we're able to really impact the lives of our community. I believe, and we won't stop until every family in our country has a fundamental plan and a clear direction to a successful financial future. What is that going to take, Josh? I have no idea. But we're gonna beat at our craft every day and grow with the vision of making that happen, and we'll figure it out as we go.
I want to ask a side question with that. Then, what do you need help with? Because you're talking about you want to expand so much. What do you need help with to get your message out to expand like you want to?
Yeah, it's talking and meeting with great people like yourself, sharing what our vision is of having agents in every state in the United States that are passionate about making a difference, that are hungry to have and make great impact and have great success. That really is the message, because when the right person hears that message, they're like, man, I want to be a part of that. I want to help break down those systemic problems in our country of lack of equal access. I want to build freedom for my family for generations to come. And when those two mesh together and meet, it is a beautiful sight, and that's what we provide. So it's getting that message out there that this is what we're doing. Here's who we are. Follow us. You can see us doing it on a daily basis. And if you want to be a part of that, man, let's go do it together.
Okay. Last question. For somebody who is, let's say they make their first real estate deal, they're a little bit successful. What would you say to them financially about what they should do for their future? I don't know everybody has a different course, but somebody who just is open-minded to things and really don't know what to do with what their finances, and they want to learn.
Yep. So first of all, I would say be very careful. Seek professional guidance. Know what you want. I know that the answer people listening to this would like to have is here are the things that I would recommend, but I can't do that because I don't know what somebody wants. Mm-hmm. Right? It's all dependent on what they want. Are they looking to do another deal? Do they want to set their kids up for college? Do they want to prepare for retirement? And what ways do they want to do that? So it all depends. But at the foundation, seek professional guidance, have a plan, and be very careful on what you do, and know that you want to plan for it holistically, if that makes sense. Holistically meaning, that you got short-term needs, you got immediate needs, you got long-term needs. Just have a plan that covers all of those, and then know what you want so that the professional you're working with can help guide you to the best steps.
Love it. Let me open up for attendees. Fred, you got a question to ask?
Well, I think you kind of hit it on the last three questions. I was kind of going that route, but probably a point in time. You did mention early you want to relearn from the people who had the life that you want. And I was just wondering at that point in time, how did you define that? Is it opulence? Was it like what is that life? Because everyone wants to define that. If it's just like I want as much money, 3 generations of money, that's a thought. But is there any guidelines around how you defined what you want?
That's a great question, Fred. How you doing, man? Great to see you.
Good. You too.
For me, it was this. I just realized that I was taught my whole life that success was going to come from, this is kind of a cliche statement, but it's really the truth. I was going to go to school, get good grades, which I never really did, but I did get all the degrees, right? Get a degree, and that was supposed to provide my family. That's what when I got injured, that's what I was told. Finish your degree, Josh. So I finished my degree, and then I got a couple more after that. But the reality was the people I was serving that had the life that I wanted, many of them did it entirely different. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the thing that most people, and again, I mentor and train people getting into entrepreneurship. They're seeking avenues, and I see it every day. And I see the struggle between everything they've been taught, the paradigm of what they think is right, that they've been taught their entire life, and then what somebody like myself may coach them to do? Well, for me, I looked at it and I said, okay, Josh, you got a choice. You can hang on to those old paradigms that you've been taught for the last 31 years. Just look around at the people that taught them to you. Or you can look at the people over here who have a different paradigm. They're teaching me different things, and look at the life that they have. And it was very simple for me, Fred. I looked at it and I said, which one do I want? I didn't know what the information was going to be per se, or be able to put a finger on it. You know, John told me this one thing and it made all, and I didn't know what that was going to be. I just knew they had a life that I wanted. I was taught by all these people. They didn't have the life that I wanted. So I had to make a decision. Which road am I going to take? Right? I looked at it and I said, if I take, a friend of mine said this one time, he said, you take the road on the right, the people on the left laugh at you. You take the road on the left, people on the right laugh at you. Right? The question is, which group do you want laughing at you?
Yeah.
For me, I understood this, and I was talking to 3 Feet from Gold, the author. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. We were having a conversation. I asked him about mentorship, and this is going to lead into the final sort of close on that question. He asked me, asked him, I said, tell me about mentorship. How big do you think that is? Greg Reed. And he said to me, he said, let me tell it to you like this, Josh. He said, the middle class, they listen to the opinions of those surrounding them, namely their family, friends, etc. So the biggest difference is the world class, they seek guidance from people that have the life that they want and are getting the results that they want right now. And so I looked at it and I said, well, what that told me was, when I accept somebody's advice, I immediately accept their quality of life. And if they're not living the life that I want, I cannot listen to them, because if I do, I'm just going to get more of what they already have. Yeah. So that is the way I looked at it. And at that point, I mean, I come from a very conservative middle-class family, right? That point, I said, that is cut off for the rest of my life. I will never allow that to influence me ever again. And anybody and anything that steps in the way of that will be eliminated from my life, from a, from a daily conversation standpoint, right? And that's just, and I'll tell you, that's one of the biggest challenges people have. Their environment. See, man, I can go on about this stuff after 15 years of mentoring people every day, right? Your environment is everything. Relationships are not static, right? Either when I elevate, either I'm going to bring the people up around me to my level, or if I stay around them and they're not willing to come up, eventually they will drag me back down to theirs. And so that whole social distancing thing, that really relates to relationships that are not feeding the soul as far as where you're headed, and just not being available for people like that. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. I love the analogies and the use of some of these terms.
Yeah.
So one other thing, I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing, but I'm wondering, what is your target client look like? It sounds like they're in a, probably not senior, but they've reached a certain stage in their career, and it's probably not 10 years, it's probably not 20 years, it's probably a little more than that. Who's your avatar?
22 on, everybody, right? Because the younger one was us, right? We didn't know anything. We had to get started. I had to start. Somebody had to tell me what to do to get me to where I wanted to go. That was me. That was what blew me out of the water when I first saw it. It was like, oh my gosh, nobody's ever told me this before. How did we get to 31 years old? Nobody told us these simple concepts before. Then you take that all the way up to somebody who's accumulated their assets, is retiring, and now goes, what do I do? I've worked for these companies. I've got these 401ks. I've got these investments. What do I do? And then obviously that's a different style of client that now says, okay, we got to help preserve that for a quality of life, for an extended quality of life. right? So it's everything in between.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
Which is what I loved, because there were no borders, there were no economic borders for us. We can serve anybody who wants a better life financially and is willing to do the right things with the coaching. We can help them get started.
Okay. I guess it always felt like the epiphany happens after you've completed, the school, the job, and then a couple of kids come out, then you're like, wait a minute, this is not going to lead to the future. And then changes start happening. But
I was sold a bag of goods.
yep.
Why? Because I saw the people that had the life I wanted, and none of them were teaching the same. They were teaching their kids entirely different things than I was taught.
Yeah.
Right now, again, our parents can only teach us what they know, and they do the very best with what they know.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's all I wanted, that's great. But the reality is I wanted more. And so I had to find somebody who could teach me how to have more. Right. I always coach my team. I go, look, my parents, your parents could teach it. In my case, they could teach me how to be great parents because they were great parents. They could teach me how to be great in the community. They were great in the community. They could teach me how to have a great marriage because they had a great marriage.
Mm-hmm.
But if I wanted to be wealthy, they couldn't teach me how to be wealthy.
Yeah.
I want to be an entrepreneur. They couldn't teach me how to be an entrepreneur because they weren't entrepreneurs. So I had to learn from somebody who could teach me that.
Fair.
Yeah.
Lee or Chantel, you have a question? Go ahead, Lee.
I was just gonna say I heard a lot of different books in what Josh just mentioned. I heard a little bit of Rich Dad, Poor Dad,
Mm-hmm.
right? I heard a little bit of one of the things someone just mentioned to me is a book that's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F.
Yes, I've seen
And
that.
I haven't read it. I just got it the other day, right? But I think, many of the things that you had mentioned were things that I've experienced in my life. For instance, similar to you, coming from, I wouldn't even call myself middle class background. We were poor, right? I always looked at TV, looked at the Cosbys and said, well, they went to college and probably that's how they got to the life that they have. So, since all around me, I see drug dealers and other people, I know I don't want to go to jail because I can't stay in the house, much less somebody put me in the 8x6 room. So I can't do that. So I watched School Days and I watched Soul Food and saw people going to college, and I went to college. But I remember in the movie Soul Food, there was a man who said that he was an executive and he made $80,000 a year. And I was probably a junior in college. So he looked like he lived a pretty good lifestyle. He had a nice car. I said to myself, well, that's the bar. And when I set that bar, that's what I was looking to do. I got out of college. I went and got every single certification that I could possibly get. But guess what? I got disappointed when I made $100,000 and I wasn't feeling the way that I wanted to feel.
Yeah.
So after that, I said, hey, let's go for 150 because I'm not feeling the way that I want to feel. And I did that all the way up to probably $250,000. But at some point in time, I said to myself, that's not going to give me happiness because I'm not happy making all that money. As a matter of fact, it probably made me feel more stressed because I was now worried about falling off the ladder.
Right.
If I fall off the ladder, I'm higher up. So that means that I fall down further and it's going to hurt more. So I always then tried to preserve that. But I started to realize that, hey, at the end of the day, what left of me and right of me thinks about, I should not give a F about what left and right thinks about. At the end of the day, I'm running my own race. And then I need to run the race that I'm running at my pace. I don't know what your take would be on that. I joined the call very late. So
yeah. I think that is a great analogy, and a lot of times that awareness happens. You know, we've got to help people realize, look, those people we're worried about, like, are they paying your bills?
Nope.
Then why are we worried? And to take it a step further, when you get to the end of the line, when you get to those golden years and you're not where you want to be, are they going to make up the difference because you listen to their advice? And the answer obviously is no as well. And so, you know, I just realized that somebody was going to laugh at me. I just wanted it to be the right side laughing at me. And that was the people that, you know, the people that I wanted to be like, not laughing, but coaching and mentoring me to get to where I wanted to go. And, you know, that's something proves to be a tough thing for a lot of people, especially when they come from a close-knit background and maybe they're younger, but they're trying to find their way in that environment. Man, it can just cripple the opportunity for people, especially today, as we all know, that the traditional route is no longer, or perhaps never was, the route that was going to help people, you know, really fulfill their goals and dreams for the most part, but just teach us how to be faithful employees. And again, we can go back to when the educational system changed, but you know, during the industrial era, when they started teaching people how to just be those faithful, they used a system that the Prussian army taught how to be a faithful soldier. They brought into our country and made it the basis, the foundation for our educational system, to teach people during the industrial era how to be faithful employees to run the factories. Well, today they're not running factories, they're running cubicles for tech companies and corporate jobs, and it's the same thing, man. But the challenge is still there of limited time, limited hours, limited income, limited impact.
But one of the things that I always realize is that a lot of wealthy people, they have issues too.
All life, right?
A lot of wealthy people, they're going to shrinks, they're using drugs, they're committing suicide. It's like, even when you do get to those levels, especially people who weren't expecting to get to those levels, right? Or they got to those levels quickly, like, you know, an American Idol.
Yeah.
Instant fame. They can't cope with that stuff.
Yeah.
And to the last point you were talking about is, yeah, there are levels to this. And I had a book on my desk. The name of the book was Empowering Yourself. And he talked about there are 7 levels to socioeconomic class titles. And that, yeah, there are points in time where if you're at level 3, but you want to rise up to level 4, you have to leave level 3 people alone and start associating yourself with level 4 people.
Ooh, that's powerful. Absolutely.
Because crabs are definitely in the barrel, and those
That's
crabs
right.
will pull your ass down.
And there's no need for a lid.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no need for a lid, because nobody. Well, that's one of the things that you know, I think it's Napoleon Hill, and I use this quote a lot. But anything that the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And as you were mentioning, the traditional educational system is teaching us not to believe.
Right.
It's it's in their interest to teach us not to believe. And yeah, a lot of what people need to do is to unlearn. Like one of the questions that I was going to ask you is, like, I got to 31 years and I had to reprogram myself. That probably was a hard thing, probably harder than kicking an addiction, is relearning yourself and all of the things that people had told you were of value, and making those things no longer value to you. Power.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt, man. It was the thing that I had going for me at that point in time, is that I had the carrot in front of my face each and every day. I saw the life I wanted to live each and every day. So it was crystal clear in front of me, which made that process you're speaking of detaching from everything I'd been taught at that point very easy, because it was crystal clear in front of me of exactly what I wanted. And so I focused on that, and it was very easy to detach, much more so than trying to do it on my own, where I'm like, yeah, I think I want more, but man, this was right in front of my face. And it was difficult. Imagine having that carrot out there, never able to get it, right? Because it keeps moving. It was not part of my life, but I knew exactly what that looked like. And so I just worked towards that and made it happen.
Well, did that set up like purpose and focus at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Purpose was never an issue for me. Focus was never an issue for me. Work ethic was never an issue. That's what made me successful as an athlete. So as soon as it came in and I put the dots together, it was game on. How are we going to make this happen? And I was very focused, very purpose driven. Didn't know what it was going to be in until I fell into it, but absolutely was focused on finding what it was I was going to do.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Likewise for you, man. That's awesome. I do have that 5 o'clock appointment that I've got to jump to, Aaron, but it's been a real pleasure to be here and spend some time with you guys.
Josh, man, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you. Really appreciate your wisdom, sharing your story. It's awesome, man. And I know people are really going to like it, especially see on the YouTube page. So just look out for that. It's going to be on there tonight.
Awesome.
So, man, I love everything you was talking about, man. And you're welcome anytime to come back, man, and talk.
I appreciate that. I appreciate
Yeah,
it. Thank you, Chantel, for the introduction, and I look forward to continue to watching all of your success, man. And just I can tell that it's happening with Fred and Lee and yourself, Aaron and Chantel. Congratulations, Chantel, on your speaking gig right after you said something. That's amazing. Put it out there in the universe, make it happen.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much, man. And I just want to say thank you for everybody who coming. I'm going to stop the recording now. God bless you and take care and see you next week.